2024 has come to a close, and this year was jam-packed when it came to movies. There were releases every single month that were beyond brilliant. Some were really, really great. Some weren't as much, but overall, it's been a very fun year when it comes to movies. If there's anybody who tells you that 2024 was not a strong year for movies, I'm not really sure what list they're talking about, because there was so much to go through that this is once again 20 movies. There were so many honorable mentions that couldn't make it, and there are movies that I haven't even seen yet that I'm sure would have had some kind of an impact as well. I haven't seen things like Nosferatu, for example, because they're not out in my neighborhood right now. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to wait to give you guys a review for that as well, so I'm sorry about that not being in this list, but from everything I've heard, it's pretty great. However, there was still so much that I watched, and there's still enough that made it through the list. So without further ado, let's get into the honorable mentions, some of the things that also deserve a shout out. Longlegs, Oddity, Deadpool and Wolverine, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, A Quiet Place Day 1, Rebel Ridge, The Shadow Strays, Inside Out 2, Wicked, Gladiator 2, Late Night with the Devil, Hitman, Woman of the Hour, and Smile 2. All of those movies were really, really good, and they all also deserve a bunch of shout outs. But unfortunately, the next 20, those just a little bit higher. So without further ado, let's get into it, starting with number 20. And at number 20, we're starting off with a movie that was actually just about making the cut. This is a movie that I actually have appreciated more as the days have gone on, and that's Juror No. 2, directed by Clint Eastwood in what may be his final movie. This is a very tightly done legal thriller with a great performance from Nicholas Hoult, and it's incredibly tense and brilliantly acted, and really kept me on the edge of my seat throughout, and I highly recommend checking it out. It had a very botched release back when it came out. I got to see it in one of the only 50-60 theaters that ran it, but it is now available on HBO Max and stuff like that, so you should go check it out over there if you haven't yet. Number 19. At number 19 is Heretic, which I had a very, very fun time with. It's directed by Scott Breck and Brian Woods, who also worked on the writing teams of A Quiet Place. And they once again have done a very good job of making a very tense, isolated thriller where the tension is constantly building as these two Mormon missionaries are facing the trial of their lives thanks to Hugh Grant's character, who is someone who is just getting increasingly more and more unnerving as the movie is going on. His performance is actually one of my favorites of the year. It's incredibly menacing, but also very entertaining. Number 18. At number 18 is Kill. I don't think enough people have seen this movie, and that upsets me. This is a movie that came out of India. It was an action movie, and it was awesome. Incredibly hyper-violent, well-shot, well-edited, brilliant breakneck stuff. I had such a great time with Kill, and I really, really want more people to see it. I think it's one of those very underseen movies when it comes to 2024. Number 17. At number 17 was Love Lies Bleeding. This is a movie that I watched earlier in March, and it's remained one of my favorite movies of the year. Another very tightly done thriller with also one of the most well-captured romances of the year, in my opinion, with Katie O'Brien and Kristen Stewart. Fantastic work over there. Extremely bloody and violent, with a very creepy performance from Ed Harris as well. Really, really had a great time with this one. This is from Rose Glass, who also directed Saint Maud, and she once again delivered over here. So major props to her and making another great movie, and I can't wait to see what she does next. Number 16. At number 16 is a movie that I think a lot of people were all over the place on, and I completely understand that. But for my money's worth, I saw the TV Glow was really well done. This is a movie that handled two things very, very effectively. One is when it came to the effect of those things that we hold on to in childhood and nostalgia, and how much it can have an adverse effect on us, as well as this idea of not being able to accept who you are, and often caught in a world which doesn't always know how to accept you. And those two themes play into a lot of the events going on, especially when it comes to the two main characters played by Justice Smith and Bridget Lindy Payne, who are both excellent in this movie. It's a beautifully shot, very well directed movie, and it really stays with you long after the credits have rolled. Number 15. one thing that I have been for the longest time, for like at least 20 years now, is a massive fan of the Transformers. So there's a very likely chance that Transformers 1 being on this list is just one of those, picks that comes through as just being a fan of the franchise. But at the same time, there is something just so fun about this movie that I've seen it 4 times now, and it still is incredibly enthralling. A wonderfully crafted story, and one that realized these characters so well and put them in the moments that we eventually get to know them as the versions we know them as. And another one which I feel is not given enough credit, so definitely do give it some more love if you get the chance to. Number 14. So this is actually somewhat of a remnant from last year. I saw this at Fantasia last year and I really enjoyed it back then. But it came out really this year, so I'm gonna add it this year, similar to Late Night with the Devil, which made my honorable mentions. And that was Hundreds of Beavers. It's a film that has a premise that is taken to an almost 2-hour runtime. And I remember thinking, a silent comedy for 2 hours where it's like this shouldn't possibly work, right? And yet somehow, against all odds, every single thing about this movie is pretty damn effective. It is incredibly funny. It is very visually creative and unique. And I had a wonderful time with it. Seeing it with a packed crowd where everybody was just having the time of their lives was great. Even seeing it with the cast and crew was really fun. They're just as wild in real life. Definitely one worth checking out if you haven't yet. Number 13. At number 13 is Conclave. This is one of the movies that I did not get a chance to review earlier in the year, but a movie that, again, has really just grown on me the more and more I've thought about it. It is a very well-told story about the vote taking place in the Vatican after the Pope's passing and just trying to figure out who is going to be elected as the next Pope. After a while, I was so invested in all of the inner politics and social issues that were being brought up that were leading to the vote skewing in one direction or the other. And it was incredibly riveting stuff and highly, highly recommended, with a fantastic performance from Ralph Fiennes over here. Definitely one of the best movies of the year and one that absolutely deserves all the credit that it's getting. So this is my recommendation to go check that out as soon as you can. Number 12. At number 12 is probably my favorite Indian movie of the year, All We Imagine Is Light. This was a gorgeous, transcendent piece of work, and Payal Kapadia as a director does such a great job of making this feel like a beautiful love letter to India and Mumbai in general, like just capturing the city in such a great way, and with terrific performances from its actresses. They're all so great over here. It's a very poignant story and one that, again, stays with you long after the credits have rolled. Number 11. At number 11 is a movie that I didn't get the chance to review due to, all kinds of other stuff going on, but it's a movie that really stuck with me, and it's one of the more brutal movies I've seen this year, and that is The Seed of the Sacred Fig. This is a gutsy movie if ever one was made. You're following the perspectives of people in and around Iran as they're dealing with a lot of unrest in the streets right now. You're following it from a family's perspective, who are our main characters, and as you're seeing everything unfold, it's constantly interspersed with also real life footage. And it's incredibly heart-wrenching to watch and extremely tough to sit through at times. If you don't know how it got out there, I recommend looking up the story online, what the director had to do to get it out there. And it's remarkable that it is in the world right now. It is one of the best movies of the year. It is one of the more heart-stopping movies of the year. It's one of those things that doesn't leave you, again, long after the credits are over. And I highly recommend checking it out. It really does stick with you. Number 10. At number 10 is a movie that when I first saw it, I said, that was pretty good. Then the more I thought about it, the more I thought, that was pretty great. And that was A Different Man. It follows a man who has a facial condition that he finally manages to find some kind of treatment for after a long lifetime of self-loathing and just a fear of, being rejected by everyone. Eventually, when he does get to fix up his face in a way, he meets a man played by Adam Pearson who has the same condition and seems to be getting a lot of love. And as the movie progresses, it really hones in on this theme of just the things that we are trying to do for acceptance, but often getting the wrong message and approach into trying to accomplish that, and essentially losing yourself in the process, which is something that does happen in this movie. And it's told in this very dark comedic way with spectacular performances from Sebastian Stan and Adam Pearson. The fact that it manages to work as well as it does is just a testament to how well the story is told. And it's one that I'm glad a lot more people are discovering along the way and giving a lot more love to. Number 9. Number 9 is probably one of the controversial picks in this list. It's the movie that I think a lot of people were very divided on when it came out. But for my money's worth, Civil War was pretty fantastic. It's a movie that deliberately decides to not necessarily take a side when it comes to showcasing the events happening at the time. And yet, despite that, this account from those journalists who are just showing you the story as it's happening and leaving it to you to figure out where it's leaning and where it wants to take the story is something that I think works quite well, and I think Alex Garland did a great job of writing and directing the movie. I don't know if I'm gonna necessarily watch Civil War again. Like, I don't think it's one of those repeat movies, but between the performances from Kirsten Dunst, Wagner Moura, Kaylee Spaney, and everybody involved, just this fantastic production that you get over here is one that I definitely hold in high regard when it comes to the year in general. Number 8. Do you guys like Hong Kong action cinema? Twilight of the Warriors, Walled In, that'll do it for you. Soi Xiong's movie. I saw this actually earlier in the year, and immediately after watching it, I was like, yep, that was great. We need to do some more of that. This was really awesome. Such great action in this one. There's so many great things that happen with the plot as well. So many twists and turns. It was really riveting, and I was lucky to see this on the big screen. I'm not going to say too much more about it because I would rather you see it for yourself, but there are going to be a few more things apparently coming in this side of the story, and I can't wait to see what those spin-offs and stuff are going to look like because it's incredibly fascinating. Number 7. At number 7 is one of the wildest movies I've seen this year, and one of those again that I just absolutely loved, and that is The Substance. This is phenomenal stuff with two powerhouse performances from Demi Moore and Margaret Qualley, both of them doing an incredible job over here, especially Moore, who I think gives the best performance of her career. I absolutely loved this movie. It is so wild and so interesting in its exploration of what beauty standards are in the Hollywood industry, but also just a condemnation of just how much actresses are pushed in order to keep up appearances. I thought this was a very well done movie, one of the best of the year for sure, and one that absolutely deserves to be talked about and put up in the best movies of the year list. Number 6. At number 6 was my favorite animated movie of the year, that being The Wild Robot. I had no idea how much I was gonna love this movie until about 10 minutes in, and I was thinking, I think we've got something special over here. What follows is a very heartfelt, dazzlingly animated movie that I absolutely loved from start to finish. Some great character work from especially Roz, the robot voiced by Lupita Nyong'o, but also all the other animals that she's interacting with were all very fun characters, and each one of them had a very emotionally resonant moment that immediately made you latch onto them. It says a lot about a movie that a very simple thing as a bird being taught to fly is the most emotionally powerful thing in a lot of ways that I've seen this year, with a beautiful score by Chris Bowers over it as well. Highly recommend watching that as well if you haven't yet. Just a gorgeous movie from start to finish. Number 5. At number 5 is Sing Sing. This is a movie that I briefly talked about on my channel. I think in the community post I said, hey, I saw this movie, you guys have to go see it, and I stand by that. Sing Sing is a brilliantly told story about a few inmates who are at a prison, Sing Sing, and they've started their own theater troupe. And essentially this theater troupe is acting as an escape, a way to better themselves and also to find something that could make them better people, just on their way out. Just being able to get that moment in the performances and the things that they were able to do is something that really, really hit. And Coleman Domingo in the lead, one of the best performances of the year from him. This is a movie that is absolutely worthy of every single piece of praise that it has received, and highly, highly recommended. It is a gorgeously done film and one of the most affecting movies of the year for sure. Number 4. At number 4 is Challengers. This stayed up in my favorite movies of the year. It didn't ever come down. This was such a fantastic piece of work. Luca Guadagnino, of course, everybody knows him from Call Me By Your Name and Bones and All very recently, the Suspiria remake. He's done an excellent job with this movie. And you get a trio of fantastic performances from Zendaya, Mike Faist, and Josh O'Connor, who are all excellent in this movie. Some of the best cinematography I've seen this year, too. There's a point towards the end of the movie where it's a POV of the ball being hit on the court. Phenomenal stuff. That was some of the best moments of the year right there. And with one hell of a score as well from Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, which is among my favorite soundtracks of the year. Number 3. It's never easy to try and top an action movie that is one of the best of the decade and even the best of the 21st century. Whenever you try to make a follow-up to that or a prequel to that, you're obviously going to be hit with a lot of scrutiny. And yet, George Miller made Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, a movie that I had no idea what it was going to be like. I don't think anybody had any clue what to expect from it. Perhaps many were even skeptical towards the very idea of its existence, and yet it's one of those movies that was just really, really great. I'm not going to tell you that Furiosa is as good as Mad Max Fury Road, but then again, it's not really the same kind of movie. They're doing very different things, and the spectacles that are being showcased are very different, and the stories are being approached very differently. You get a very melancholic storyline with Furiosa, a very character-driven one that is very, very well acted, with great stuff from Anya Taylor-Joy, and especially a very demented Chris Hemsworth playing a character ironically named Dementus, and both of them are exceptional in this movie. It's visually pretty great. The action is fantastic. Once again, a pulse-pounding score from Tom Holkenborg. Great direction from George Miller once again. And again, it's a movie that I have revisited in the time since, and it has just improved for me. Number 2. Now, before I get into what number 2 is, this and number 1 were neck and neck. Because as far as I'm concerned, both of these movies are number 1. So, you can fluctuate between them as much as you can. Like, there's a very good chance that I'm saying right now, this is number 2. Next time it'll be number 1, and vice versa. With that being said, number 2 is Anora. Wonderfully crafted by Sean Baker. This man has done an incredible job with all the movies that he's made so far. I think Anora is his magnum opus. And it gets a career best performance from Mikey Madison, who I think is probably my favorite performance of the year. She is exceptional in every single scene of this movie, and I have such admiration for this thing. It's beautifully written, it's emotionally heartbreaking, it's incredibly funny, it's wonderfully shot, there's some great supporting characters you got out of it as well, particularly one of my favorites of the year being Igor, played by Yura Borisov. There's a lot of love for him that is out there right now as well. He was really, really great. I mean, really, this movie is as well crafted as it can get, and it deserves all the attention that it's getting right now. It won the Palme d'Or at Cannes for a reason. Number 1. I mean, it's not a surprise at this point that I've made my love for Dune Part 2 very clear. I think as far as a spectacle goes, as far as, filmmaking goes, when it comes to a big budget movie like Dune, there are certain things that I feel like now you should look at those and say those are the standards. I loved the book. Frank Herbert did a great job, of course, with the book as one of the greatest of all time in science fiction. I think the movie does an exceptional job of adapting that, making its changes along the way, yes, but still telling a really great story with phenomenal performances from everyone, phenomenal score from Hans Zimmer as well, and just riveting to the ending. That final hour of Dune Part 2 is one that is not leaving me anytime soon. And I can't wait to see what they're going to do with Dune Messiah. I'm very excited to see how they're going to wrap up that part of the story, because I've read the book of that as well. It's going to be very interesting to see that play out. But as of right now, all I can say is I really love this movie. So guys, that is the end of the list of 2024. All in all, a very strong year, and I had a really great time with these movies. Thank you so much for tuning in for all of 2024. Thank you so much for watching along the way. It was a blast. I can't wait to see what's 2025 going to hold, and I'm looking forward to ushering in the new year with you guys. And as always, if you like this, please do subscribe, and I will see you guys at the movies.